Welcome back to CivilNet. I'm Patrick Elliott, and I'm joined today by Sheila Paylan, a friend and fellow Montreal Armenian, but also famed human rights lawyer. Sheila, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Can you first tell everybody a little bit about yourself, just to give a little bit of context to the conversation?
Sure. I'm a human rights lawyer. I worked for 15 years for the UN as an international criminal lawyer in various courts for, like, on genocide, on Rwandan genocide, former Yugoslavia, Cambodia. I spent a couple of years in the DRC investigating war crimes, and the last 3 years I've been living in Armenia, trying to help Armenia seek accountability for war crimes after the Artsakh War.
Let's start with the most pressing issue. I mean, I don't know if you had the chance to watch it, but yesterday we had the UN Security Council meeting convene on the most recent aggression and subjugation of Artsakh. Mm-hmm. What are your impressions, or what are some of the key takeaways that we should be aware of?
I mean, I always have this undying hope that we're going to see some real results come out of the UN. But, you know, after yesterday, it was kind of more of the same, except the language is getting stronger, especially from a few, you know, key players, the US and France, as well as, you know, Germany having sort of stepped in. Germany's not even a member of the Security Council. So we see the EU and the US really supporting, like really calling out the aggressor, really using very, very strong language.
You don't get both sides anymore.
Well, not from them, right?
Yeah.
That's a really big deal. But insofar as what the Security Council is meant to do, we're not any closer. And so it frustrates me as a former staff member of the UN. It frustrates me as someone who really spent most of her career at the UN. I would hope that it would function better, but it doesn't. At the same time, you know, we're not alone in that. So seeing powerful countries rise in their support for us is promising. And everything that they said is on record. So even if we don't get a resolution, even if we don't get, you know, an international UN mandated peacekeeping force, which we absolutely should have, but, you know, reality is what it is. I do see hope for perhaps like a coalition of willing, powerful states to eventually step in and help us. But yeah, that's not going to happen tomorrow.
That's interesting. I mean, you already know my opinion in private, so I might as well make it public. I'm not a believer in any of these supranational entities. I think they're tremendous drains on taxpayer dollars. It's a nice prestige effort for bureaucrats to feel like they're doing something, but yeah, it's still the same old cynical, you know, the powerful countries get to do what they want. I found it interesting, like Zelensky was saying the other day that he wants to expand the UN Security Council in a bid to offset Russia's veto abilities. But you look at who he wants, who should be on that Security Council. It's not, you know, I don't know, let's say like a country that's somewhat clean, or I don't know, it's not like having Bhutan on there or something. He wants Turkey, right? So everyone's trying to kind of gerrymander it.
Doesn't matter what he wants. It doesn't matter what he wants. Yeah. The composition of the Security Council will not change without the P5 members not vetoing that. So that is never going to happen. Whatever he wants is not going to happen. Yeah. What we do need reform, multilateral reform. There are efforts in different avenues of countries like saying, let's get together and do this ourselves. I think we do need something like that at the Security Council level as well. It's totally failing in preserving or, you know, keeping international peace and security. It's not doing its job. So whether or not we get to a point where we get a, you know, UNSC 2.0, we'll see, you know, but I think that's something. It's not going to be, in my opinion, it's not going to be able to happen without an amendment to the UN Charter, and the UN Charter can't be amended without the P5 not vetoing it. So yeah,
it's kind of built to fail. Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I'm not a big believer in these, but from what I noticed, the positives is that you had, as you mentioned, Germany. Like they're not even a member, and they showed up and they sat next to Mirzoyan, which was symbolic.
And they made really
like 5 minutes of just eviscerating Baku. Like they were just, and they were calling out the aggressor. The EU was interesting because the EU is itself a supranational body. It's not a sitting member of the UN whatsoever. And they were there and also sitting next to Mirzoyan and also calling out Baku. So this is a first for sure. I think on the individual level, it will be interesting to see how our relations evolve with these countries going onward. One thing that was really, I mean, it's not surprising.
Russia.
Oh my God! They called Stepanakert Khankendi. The second sentence was about their poor peacekeepers who lost their lives and God knows what. I mean, that's just spectacular. But how do we? You brought up something that's really interesting. Is that we can have a coalition of the willing. How would that be done by circumventing Russia? How can we outmaneuver, outstrategize, and outwin Russia's veto power?
I mean, are you seriously asking me that? Wow.
I was hoping you had some answers here.
I will leave that.
You've been in the nest of vipers for 15 years, you said. So
that's way above my pay grade.
Gotcha.
But we've seen it before.
But that was NATO in Serbia and Bosnia, right?
Not only. You know, the way I see it is, I don't see this as sort of like a boots on the ground situation or like a military invasion. A coalition of willing states that like powerful enough states that will exert pressure on Azerbaijan, for example, by imposing sanctions. So this will be, I know that, you know, sanctions don't always work, but against Azerbaijan, they really would. Even the threat, the discussion is also, you know, the language around sanctions is also getting stronger. Yeah. So that's good.
Well, you had like 60 MEPs who voted to put together a sanctions package against Azerbaijan.
Yeah, and it's moving forward in the States a little bit, but
just an hour ago, Senator Menendez.
Exactly. Yeah. But I want there to be more of like a shock to it, not this like gradual, drippy sort of movement, because it doesn't have that coercive effect until sanctions are imposed, right? So if the UK, the US, and the EU impose sanctions on Azerbaijan, we would see an end to this. Now, like, how is that so impossible to envisage? I know that makes me sound naive, but that's what they're for. And that doesn't involve any loss of life, you know? It doesn't involve any possibility of destruction of civilian infrastructure or injury to anyone. It's just, we're not going to let you travel and we're not going to let you spend your billions of dollars until you behave. What's wrong with that, right? So I think that's the solution, and hopefully we'll get somewhere on that.
Yeah, I'm not particularly hopeful. Like these are tools that are used. You know, I mean, there's no, if you're overly supportive of Ukraine, you can't possibly look at Artsakh and see it through any different lens, right? It's literally a fascist regime by every definition of the word, that is about to absorb and subjugate a population that has been democratic and has had more rights than their own people. So
but also Azerbaijan is helping Russia, you know, like if you don't care about Armenia, if you don't care about Nagorno-Karabakh or Armenians, fine. But if you care about Ukraine, you need to fight Russia. If you want to fight Russia, you need to fight Azerbaijan because they're helping them, right? This link is unfortunately not seen clearly enough. And I hope, you know, like a speech like what we heard at the Security Council yesterday, the basic complicity of Russia with Azerbaijan in what's going on should show that they are bedfellows.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about the ICC. What's the significance of the Rome Statute for Armenia? Why is it so important?
It's so important so that we can actually have a viable option to seek accountability. And, you know, this is something, I'm going to say it here first. Well, I have said it before, but I can't believe we haven't ratified this yet. We're so close to having a mass exodus of Armenians from Karabakh into Armenia. And if we don't ratify before that happens, we don't have that avenue of accountability anymore. I just don't understand what we're waiting for. We're so close, you know?
Russian threats, obviously.
And well, it doesn't matter. You know, it's not like we've got anything more. I mean, yeah, of course we have more to lose, but they're already attacking us. You know what I mean? So what do you have to lose? We might as well ratify. It's like if you're constantly getting railed on by your boyfriend for cheating on you, you might as well cheat on him, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that wasn't the best analogy.
Well, I get it. Well, I mean, look, I've said this to diplomats many times when they ask us about our relationship to Russia. It's like this is the abused spouse who's, you know, controls the wallet, controls the kids, and there's no way out.
Exactly, but there's also, you know, this pivot west, this pivot, if we can't. Okay, we were talking about this before, right? Armenia should just leave the CSTO. Like, that's more dangerous. That's more dangerous if you don't have like a security blanket behind you. But ratifying the Rome Statute puts you in a group of like-minded countries and states, and they will take us more seriously. Like, we are serious about peace, democracy, accountability. We're not like, no more both sides. We are on that side. We are on your side, right?
But how? I want to know this personally. Like, what accountability are we talking about? Let's say we join it. What happens? Because look, I'll give you an example. We've discussed this over the last few months as well. I mean, what was it? The Hague that ordered them to open up the Lachin corridor? How many months ago was that? What accountability are we really talking about here?
So that's different. The International Court of Justice orders states. Like, these are disputes between states. It's not any single person. So. Yes, the order is there. It's a really, really big deal. It's not, you know, the fact that it hasn't been enforced yet or that it hasn't been applied yet, rather, should in no way be interpreted as like the order being useless. It's not. It is constantly referred to in every statement. You know, without it, we wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are today. So the ICC has jurisdiction over genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. As long as Azerbaijan is not a party to the Rome Statute and we become one, aggression is off the table. But genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, individual criminal responsibility. So this is not about holding Azerbaijan accountable, but people, individual people. Aliyev, for instance, any general, any one of those people we see in the videos cutting off heads and all that, these people, and you know, they are identifiable.
Yeah, they're gladly giving us all the ammo that we need.
You know, we have evidence. We have so much of it, and more is going to come in the coming days now. But legally speaking, there's no, if Armenia waits too long to ratify, already there's already the problem of not having jurisdiction for the stuff that's already happened, right? Anything that the court can only entertain crimes that happen after the ratification occurs. So this is about
the clock is ticking.
The clock has been ticking for 3 years, so for many years. But last year, you know, I wrote an article in EBN Report where I said, "What are we waiting for? It's been a year now." Yeah. Anyway,
this is a good point. Actually, a lot of people have been asking, what do we do? There's protests downtown, and it's the usual. The government needs to resign. Okay, what comes next? No answer, and of course it's the usual Ishkhan Sagatelian and the other geniuses. So I don't expect that to go anywhere. But the more important thing is, okay, what should we do? I think one thing we should be doing is holding this government accountable for exactly this. So diasporans who are listening, so Armenian citizens who are listening, this is what we should be focusing our efforts towards. Is that the simplest thing to move the needle forward is ratify the thing. Just do it now, get it out of the way. I mean, we voted for you, or those of us who did, those of us who are citizens. I mean, you have a duty to your electorate, and that's what we're asking for. So if we can combine our voices that way. The
government has, you know, submitted this to Parliament to, you know, it's going through a process. It's just taking too long. You know, there was like a long recess of Parliament, so they didn't consider it for like 2 or 3 months. Call an emergency session, do this, you know, like we should have done that before. Anyways, I'm sure that there are ways to expedite this ratification. When we found out about the use of mercenaries in the Second Artsakh War, you know, a process was made right away to ratify the Mercenaries Convention. It still took, I think there was, from the time of signing, It takes a month to ratify, and for whatever reason, it took a month for the government to deposit the instrument. So we lost a month. You know what I mean? Like, things like that should not be happening. That's enough. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Well put. I suppose make me a believer. I mean, for now, I'm not. You know, we keep sending these photos and the documentations and the videos, and we have Bellingcat confirming. I mean, these executions in Hadrut and all these horrors. Yeah. You know, even holding our POWs after a ceasefire was signed. You know, 2-3 years onward. That's a straightforward violation of the Geneva Convention. So I mean, why do we even bother? How is any of this stuff helping us today? What tools and mechanisms? I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone has any real interest in enforcing these things. And the big fear is that it's going to be a fait accompli before the world is like, oh, sending our thoughts and prayers. You know, it's what's even left of Artsakh at this point to send. I shouldn't even say. I hate to say that. But
look, it took a couple of years after the Rwandan genocide before people called it a genocide. It took a couple of years before, you know, these things take time, and I am seeing I do have optimism that we're going to have a meaningful intervention from some international coalition or organization to rectify this, because it has to get darker first, unfortunately. You know, like, we need to buckle up, and we're in it now. We knew this was coming. We hoped it wouldn't. We hoped we could stop it. We're in it now, and the ethnic cleansing hasn't started yet. When it does, we'll see more. You know, more. There will be a tipping point, but we haven't reached it yet. So I can't make you a believer other than saying this is, you know, just you'll believe it when you see it. There's a stacking process to it. It's not, we're not Ukraine. We don't get this this treatment, you know, and most situations don't. Like, they actually don't. If you, yeah, I mean, but the odds are in our favor. At least the law is in our favor, and the facts are in our favor. We're not as strong as Azerbaijan, and we don't have the money that they have. So it's going to take us a little longer, you know.
Hopefully it won't be too late by then.
It's never too late. It's better late than never.
I don't know. That won't bring back the people that we lost, right?
Of course not.
Sheila, any call to action you'd like to finish on? Anything you
ratify the Rome Statute now. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't be hitting the table because this is so sensitive.
I agree. I'm glad you brought this issue up. I didn't even realize how long it was taking.
We should have done that, you know, yesterday, last month, last year. But
today,
if we can do it today before the close of business, that would be great. Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Sheila. It's been Patrick from CivilNet. We hope to greet you guys in brighter days, and we'll keep you posted as usual.